Welcome back, everyone, to Vox Markets. My name is Paul Hill. I'm delighted again to be able to speak to Bob Rauker, CEO of Belluscura, a leading portable oxygen concentrator firm. So welcome, Bob.
Welcome. How are you? It's a lot of words to say early in the morning for me.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
Anyway, big congrats on today's announcement that the company was adding a new direct-to-consumer channel to its existing distributor model. Hot on the heels, actually, of Monday's equally sort of impressive announcement that the company had launched its next-generation X-PLOR device. But before we sort of dig into the details, I don't suppose you could just quickly, just broad brush, give a feel of sort of like how the market is for sort of portable oxygen concentrators and sort of getting the supply to meet that demand.
So, I mean, in general, and thanks again for having me this morning. So I'm holding in my hand the next generation X-PLOR. It was known internally as the CX, but it is the X-PLOR portable oxygen concentrator. It's lightweight. We actually, the improvements, just roughly so you understand, is that we produce a little bit more oxygen at the various levels. It's still the even further now, producing more oxygen per pound than anything in its class. We will get into a little bit more detail. We have a Bluetooth enabled app and stuff like that. But the overall market and why we're excited is we're bringing in this next generation, and the market continues to expand rapidly because of supply chain issues with a lot of the competition, and just for other reasons. There continues to be a shortage in availability of, we've had just in the last week, we've had two different distributors contact us, and they have up to a 1 year wait list to get small concentrators. They had to provide somebody a big home unit because that's all they had. So for us, it's unfortunate for the patients, but for us, it's a huge opportunity and to fill that gap. And that's and part of that is one of the reasons why we've announced we've launched this, and then we've launched the direct to consumer, which we've set up now, and it's active as of today, so that consumers can actually contact us directly to purchase the unit, and that's a benefit to the consumer. It's obviously a benefit to the company because we don't have a middleman involved, or middle person, whatever is the politically correct word to use these days. But we don't have an independent distributor. Not that we're cutting them out totally, but it does give us the ability to continue offering the product at very competitive pricing.
Yeah, I would also just add to investors publicly, you can have a look at some of the sort of information which has been disclosed, and look at in particular, the sort of the market leader Inogen and its last quarterly results, because it did talk about that it was struggling to be able to supply portable oxygen concentrators, which I think sort of like dovetails with your point. In fact, if you've got a market leader who's struggling, then there's obviously a big shortage of these devices. Now, just coming back onto Monday's announcement and the sort of technology, it did seem as though the device, the new X-PLOR, is adding some world first, sort of like, or first of its kind, data aggregation technology onto these sort of the existing software and hardware.
Yeah, absolutely. So we increased, as I said, some of the what we call the bolus oxygen on it. But the big feature that we have, two things that we did is we have what we added in what's called auto breath detect. And what that basically does, if we don't feel a person breathing on it, it does give an alarm and stuff, and starts, but it goes into a continuous mode, and we feel that so it just continuously blows oxygen into the person, and if they happen to fall asleep, then it will eventually shut off and preserve the battery. But that's a feature we added in that patients were asking for. But the big one is the app. One of the biggest things when we started the company was in working with the physicians we work with was the importance of connectivity. And we're not the first one to have a connected device, but the big thing is that we are the first one, we believe, in the world to be connecting it to other devices, smartwatches, phones, oxygen pulse oximeters, and we'll have my engineer Sarah will do a demonstration, and we can kind of cut to that later, Paul. But
yeah, okay, that's fine, no problem. So when you talk about smart applications, you're talking about sort of like iWatches and Fitbits and Massimos and stuff like that.
Exactly. So this unit, as it's coming out now, will have connectivity to two of the leading pulse oximeter companies in the U.S., Masimo and Nonin. And so essentially, what it does is on the app on the phone, that'll connect to it. So a patient will be able to see, hey, this is the results of their Fitbit, their sleep, their pulse from the pulse oximeters, the same type of data, blood saturation, and it'll put it all on the same. I'm looking at, I should have a phone in front of me, but I don't have it turned on. But with the phone, you would be able to see all that data collected, and then when you do a telehealth meeting with your physician, now you have that data all aggregated into a single app, and now a physician can look at that, or a respiratory therapist, whoever's looking at it, can look and see. And it's also tied into weather data, and including allergy days and stuff like that, so they can get a really nice picture of what, and we think that's going to lead to much better treatment of the patient. Because now, instead of asking a person, well, how did it go, or what's going on, they're trying to remember, or they have scribbled down notes. Now they'll be able to pull up the app on their phone and say, yeah, I have a rough time on these days, and you find out, well, are you walking, are you doing this, or it's measuring steps. Everything that data will be all aggregated onto a single screen.
So essentially, let's just use me as a case study. Let's just say I've been a smoker the whole of my life. I've got COPD. I've been struggling to actually breathe. I'm on a portable oxygen concentrator, so it gets me out of hospital and allows me to actually be treated at home. Now, I have these devices which are all sending information in, and let's just say, for argument's sake, my condition starts to worsen over time, but the physician obviously is not seeing me because he's in hospital, but I'm at home. Presumably, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I mean, essentially, with this extra data layer you're putting on, you'll be able to say, one, whether my condition is deteriorating. Two, presumably, sort of like whether there's reaching any alarms and whether there needs treatment, and sort of like, three would be, what else I could do to help myself, presumably.
Correct. And so the app, as it comes out initially, will provide all this aggregated data. And then phase 3 is exactly what you're talking about. Phase 3 of the app, which we plan on releasing with our next generation, a slightly larger concentrator in phase 3, we'll do exactly that a physician or patient can start setting alarms and notifying that, and says, hey, you're continually degrading on these various variables and stuff, and you need to reconsider, and they can set it up. The patient will control it. Do they want this alarm to go to their physician? Do they want to go to their maybe their child, maybe they're an older person, maybe they're a younger person that wants to send it to their parent or somebody else that's caregiving. That way people start getting this information and they can take better care of them. So we think this is a huge, improvement over the care. It will bring down the cost of healthcare because I think that it allows us to give that warning hopefully sooner, than before it becomes an exacerbation and an emergency room visit. And that's the goal there, that they would start seeing patterns. And
then just on that one, Bob, I mean, that's really interesting because let's just take that example. So, you set it alarms, you start seeing a deterioration in my condition, then presumably this data aggregation that the company's now been able to collect, it must be extremely useful to sort of like the drug companies or the other companies that essentially are providing the treatment for me with my say lung condition, because they can then tweak that particular drug to maximize the response from me, presumably.
Absolutely. That is the ultimate goal, because right now you've got this void of information or different collection sources. Now you got it all together. And now you have this aggregation. Certainly, if that's information that this person's also taking an inhaler and a buterol or other things like that, they can kind of look and see what's happening. Do they need to increase this? Do they need to perhaps decrease it? And a key thing with COPD patients is that, and the doctor, is that every patient has a different target oxygen. We all look at COVID and say everybody wants to be at 95, 96, 98, 99% oxygen saturation. But that's not always true with various patients like COPD. They want to keep that oxygen level because there's certain things that can happen. You can make if you don't get enough carbon dioxide out of your body, you can create an acidity within the blood and stuff like that. So they tend to want to keep that oxygen saturation a little bit lower. And so that way they can then set those alarms. It can be referred to a drug. There's a whole host of things. We think it's going to drive significant value into this device and make it a preferred product of physicians and caregivers. That, yeah, this is the device you want to use because now I can get some data I can use to help treat you better. And that's really what we're driving at this. It's not just to have a significantly, smaller, lighter unit, but we're trying to just keep jumping ahead of the curve, saying this is where healthcare is headed, and we're pushing that much faster. And so, at least with the people we talk to in the healthcare community, they're very excited about being able to see that data. And then going into phase 3, as you said, it allows us to further improve treatment of the patient.
And just to show, and I wouldn't be surprised, demand increases even more. And if the industry is obviously short of just normal portable oxygen concentrators, not just the ones with the extra functionality, well, how's the company positioned in terms of manufacturing capacity for this? If it sees a spike in devices or sales?
Well, we've got manufacturing now operating in Texas. I apologize if you hear some noise because we've expanded into a large area here, and we're actually going to do further expansion on manufacturing. So we're ramping up manufacture on the product, we're hiring a lot more people to come on board and bring these on board. So that was also why we did the announcement 2 months ago to expand into Asia Pacific region, and specifically with the Innomax deal. The key thing of that is not just to expand into Asia Pacific, but to work with a world-class manufacturer to expand that manufacturing. So we'll have two manufacturing sites. That one is still anticipating that'll come online by Q1 of 2023. And that's a significant amount of manufacturing that will come out of there. And that is product that, because it's ISO certified and stuff, we can bring back into the United States too, to meet the demand, and hopefully into Europe as we finish out our own ISO certification and then apply for CE and CA mark. So we're definitely ramping up production on both here in Texas and in hopefully soon in China with the Innomax deal.
Okay, great. Well, now moving on to sort of the today's announcements, can you just give us a bit of color, the strategic rationale behind the shift or the addition of a direct-to-consumer channel, particularly, I guess, in the light of the industry's difficulty in supplying sort of like portable oxygen concentrators, and I also know publicly, from Inogen's announcements, I think it was the Q2, that they're pushing prices up as well.
Yeah, I think though, so direct to consumer, as you talk about Inogen and stuff, they've had a direct to consumer business, and they continue to expand it. Initially, we went with the distribution model, but what we're finding is along the line with this shortage, we saw a significant opportunity twofold. One, we saw pricing going up, and everybody sees inflation and supply chain and stuff. We think that the idea that you continue to raise the prices is just not a good business model. And so we sat back over the last few months and looked, and we said, listen, there's some huge inefficiencies in the market. And one of those is we talked to a lot of the smaller distributors, and there's hundreds of those in the United States that sell thousands of these units over the course of a year. And many of them have a wait list of a year and back, and so they can't get a hold of the units. So we've done two things. We're doing a direct to consumer where we can set the price. This is where this is going to be set, and it's going to be a very competitive price, significantly lower than the competition, not because we think it's a commodity product, but we still are maintaining huge gross margins. But by taking out the middleman, the inefficiency, not completely cutting them off, that as you might hear some other people talk about in other industries, we're not doing that. We're partnering with them. We're saying, listen, there's a way to do this more efficiently. We're the partner program for a lot of these smaller companies. We're not asking them to buy the unit. That's the typical business model where they have to spend several, to buy 5-10 units, thousands of dollars of capital up front. No, you guys are going to get a commission We're going to ship it and sell it. They make a nice return on the sale of that. They don't have to put the upfront capital into it. It's a very appealing thing, and they get concentrators for their customers. And there's literally thousands of people throughout the United States that don't have access. At the same time, when we go direct to consumer, there's the product. It's available. We're not doing the typical that you see in a lot of industries where something is X and then we talk and we take 10% off here, 20% there. No, this is the price. This is what we're doing at, and this is what you get. And it's a significantly, we think it's a great product at where it's going to be. And our business model show an increased profit margin to us and revenue. So it looks very promising. The reception from the various distributors we talked to has been extremely positive. They like this way of relooking at the business, and so we think it'll be a tremendous. We're filling a huge void, and so we're very, very optimistic where it's headed. And we'll do the same thing when the Discover comes out. The same thing. It's just we look at this thing, we say there's some huge inefficiencies with multiple middlemen in the market, and that just drives up the cost like everything you see.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's not only is it much more efficient as well, sort of taking out the actual supply costs, but equally it's also much more efficient given the context of an industry shortage of portable oxygen concentrate in terms of where you hold stock. Because if you're holding it centrally and there isn't sort of like pieces and pockets of stock inventory held in your distributors, it means that people who desperately need these portable oxygen concentrates have the best chance of getting it, because you're not storing it in a warehouse, or a distributor's not storing it in a warehouse which isn't being used, I guess.
Absolutely. And a key thing with that, and I think we haven't touched on it with the direct to consumer, we don't have the exact numbers, but this product, these are covered by Medicare, which is an insurance model. That's through what we call a rental model. We're still doing that business model. We still have a number of distributors that are selling this, that will still continue to sell it direct themselves, but they also provide it through a rental and a Medicare. At this point, we aren't renting any of these from the Medicare model. We're simply maintaining the direct consumer model to this. And so we don't know the exact numbers. The estimates are 40-50% of these products are bought by people with cash. And so they may actually have, they may have a tank or a bigger tank than this. They may actually have that at home already. And this is a second or third device that maybe it isn't covered by insurance. Maybe they already have stuff. So I want to make clear, it's not an either or in many cases. It also depends on their prescription. Some people have a full prescription under a Medicare prescription, which allows them to get it covered by Medicare. Some people just have a prescription that basically says, a general practitioner perhaps said, here, I'm giving you an oxygen prescription, but they haven't met the requirements of Medicare. So they can acquire one of these because they're prescription devices, but it's not covered by Medicare. And that's really a lot of what we're targeting, is a lot of these people. We have a woman we just sent a product to that has she has a recurring lung cancer, and she's a cyclist and stuff like that. And she just wanted something that would allow her to continue to keep going out there. She was getting a little short of breath, and she sent us some really nice videos of her back out on the bike and utilizing one of these lightweight units. The alternative that her DME had was canisters of oxygen. They just didn't have these units. So we're really opening up the market that unfortunately in the last 2 years has been shut down at that smaller level. And so that's where we just see huge, I should say huge, but gigantic opportunity, whatever the word is. We see a great opportunity for the company filling this niche with the shortage and who's being shorted on this.
Yeah, I think that incremental point is important for investors. It's not replacing; it's an incremental, sort of like with your D2C. Now, just in terms of additional sort of infrastructure, are you going to need any sort of like ongoing extra customer service, marketing, or logistics teams at all, or is this just going to be sort of like a small amount of additional cost?
I mean, it's a small amount of additional cost that will grow with, obviously, with the increased sales. We were already I mean, the interesting thing in this market is that we already were having to put together a lot of our own marketing and advertising and make sure patients are aware. As many people, we go to some of the shows and things like that. People weren't even aware sometimes these things were available. So we were already starting to put out the marketing and the sales and stuff like that. So it was already stuff that we had to do anyways to support, because the distributors predominantly just distribute. They don't do a lot of advertising. They rely on us. So those costs were already pretty much baked into our numbers and stuff like that. Small, call center and stuff like that activity. We have that in there, but that was also stuff that was already forecasted in to deal with customer questions. I mean, how do you remove the battery or things like that? So we had a lot of that already built into the equation. So we're not looking at any significant increase. I mean, those numbers will increase, but only with increased sales and revenue and stuff like that. So we had already planned on doing this at one point. We're doing it a little bit sooner than we planned, just because we see this shortage, and we see and the demand from people asking us, can you make more product available? And so that's why we're ramping up that's why we did the raise earlier this year, ramping up the manufacturing and production of these products.
And what about overseas, when you could get the, say, the Asia, the Chinese manufacturer on board, and that starts sort of shipping products in next year? Are you going to use a D2C as well as a sort of distributor model there, or is it all sort of like centrally bought? I don't know, in these regions.
It depends on the country. Most of them are distributor models. So that's the plan, is to, what you deal with more there is we'll take China as an example. Is it an exclusive, or is it an exclusive in a certain area, or is it exclusive to an online? And they have very similar business models. They have their Alibabas and Taobao, or Tai, horrible at pronouncing it, but there are other online, and they also have their thousands of distributors and stuff. Of China's has the largest proportion of home oxygen concentrators in the world for any country. They got 52%, I believe, was the latest number. So there's a whole host of different ways that. So we will probably likely do a multi-channel distribution with that. We're in discussions with a couple of different people, and their response has been very positive to this unit, and getting it a product like this into that market. Okay, great.
Well, many thanks for that, Bob. And just in terms of sort of the broader picture, future news flow for the company, I'm guessing you've probably got, we've got a trading update sometime after the half year. I'm guessing sometime, or is it wait until the interims in September?
I don't think we've said it yet. I mean, I think the half year, if we did, it would probably, and I'd have to obviously check and stuff.
Yeah.
But it'd be end of July, early August, the typical time frame. And then, but I mean, our biggest things that'll be rolling out will be, the Discover, which will be that's still planned in Q3, with the production rolling into the unit in Q4 there at launch, soft launch in Q3. That device is looking wonderful. We're planning on hopefully getting the ISO certification soon, which will allow us then to apply for CE and CA mark to move into Europe. And of course, as we move forward with the other channels and stuff. So we're really excited, and probably towards the end of the year, we'll probably be announcing any next generation stuff that we have brewing in the background here of some of the products and stuff we're doing, and some potential further additions to the app and things that we're doing right now. So that's, I think we'll have a pretty healthy news flow here over the next 6 months.
Good. And just on that Discover device, what remind investors what extra features and functionality that offers patients?
So that device, this device weighs, 6.5 pounds with the 8-cell battery. So it is, almost twice as much as this one, but the big difference is that produces 2,000 milliliters of oxygen But the key thing this will be the world's first ambulatory continuous flow. There's nothing else on the market anywhere that weighs, they all weigh about 12 to 14 pounds, anything with similar flow capability. So we're literally almost 40 to 50% lighter than anything out there, producing a significantly amount of oxygen. It'll be by far more oxygen per pound than anything available. And so we think that's going to be transformational to the company. Because it's just so much smaller. It allows patients. So the whole idea is that you look at a period of time that people are on oxygen, and so we'll have two units that really carry a long period of time that a patient can start with this, and unfortunately the disease does progress, and then they can move to this. But the key thing is that both devices, we think, will have a significantly positive impact on patients, that they're light, they'll maintain their mobility, because a lot of these machines, when they get to be 12, 15, 18 pounds, they're not that mobile. And here you are sitting here with a disease, progressing and reducing your ability to breathe. And now you're trying to drag something heavier and heavier. And our goal is to say, hey, listen, we want to try to, straighten or level that curve a little bit more so that it's lighter. You can be more mobile. And with mobility, this consensus is it's better for you and me if, the more mobile we are, as we get older or disease progress, the better we are. So we see that as a huge, differential for the company. We see this one obviously is going to be wonderful, and we continue forward. So that's why we're very excited, and that'll have the app, and it'll have the phase 3 app built into it also, which will have a lot more even more data than the phase 2 of the app, of the Nomad app. And hopefully at that time, we continue to talk to more people that talk about wanting their connection to this ability of aggregating information. And so we'll even be more functional and stuff like that.
And just broadly, just before we finish, how come the company is so much faster and innovative and sort of like nimble than bigger competitors? Is it because it hasn't got any sort of the legacy products around, or old technology? And it's I mean, can you just briefly sort of like touch on, why you're so much quicker at bringing out sort of like, these next generation products than bigger companies?
Well, I think a lot of what we have, and we've done a couple of things. We've brought on some wonderful people in the engineering side and on the marketing and sales who have a lot of experience in the industry. And like everything, they learned how to do certain things. They learned how they shouldn't do certain things. And one of them is not being so reliant on legacy devices and that kind of business model. And two, we bring in, we've also brought in a lot of younger people, and it's like, hey, you can operate, the medical and the tech are merging to create health tech. And so it's also about being more efficient, and I'm, I've always, people talk about innovation. Innovation can be, in inventing and developing, but it's also in how you handle the business and how you treat customers. There's a whole bunch of innovation. So, and we, within the company, we look at all that innovation, whether it's sales, marketing, regulatory, quality, all the different things, we treat it equally. It's all very important. We don't just say we're all about this, we're all about that. And ultimately is we think that by providing a tremendous product for the patient and the system, it's going to sell itself. And that's, so when you have that mentality going into everything, it's a can-do attitude. We can do this. We know what we want to do. We're not going to let these barriers that are supposedly there. I think it's just a lot of it just mental. Well, that's how we've always done it. Well, we don't need to do it that way, because how that's always doing it is just, for example, as we talk, prices just keep going up. You can't keep raising the price. You're gonna make the product, unattainable. There's ways to do it, and you cut out those inefficiencies. And I can tell you to go look at the Mark Cuban drug company as an example of somebody who said, hey, there's a better way to do that. That's interesting enough. It's just down the road from us here in Dallas. Yeah. And it's a tremendous way to relook at how you do generic drugs. So a lot of people are looking at the healthcare industry and saying, let's take a step back. There's better ways to do things. And that's, when you have that mindset, everybody thinks that way.
We should go and teach the NHS here as well. It'll be useful in the UK. Okay, well, thanks very much, Bob, for your time. Terrific two announcements there with the new sort of D2C model alongside the next generation Explorer, and you've whet my appetite for new technological breakthroughs there, not just in Belluscura but across the world. And I think a lot of the data, actually, aggregation, you'll be really helping to help a lot of the therapies that sufferers of COPD and pneumonia have as well. So look forward in touching base, and thanks again, Bob.
Thank you. Take care.
What we have here is a brief demonstration of how the new Belluscura Nomad app works in conjunction with the X-PLOR device. The app can be downloaded from the Google Play or the Apple Store, and then it's connected to the device. It's a simple procedure, and it will display from the actual X-PLOR oxygen purity, oxygen pulse volume, and battery life. You can then further scroll down into the Nomad app, and you can connect to devices. And there's a device list. There's various ways to connect. In this case, we're looking at view the device list. And we have a spirometer, pulse oximeters. You click on the list, and you see things such as a Fitbit, iWatch, pulse oximeters. This here is connected to a Fitbit, showing information from the patient that they can see on theirs. And then this can also be compared with other information. We have on the left side, we have a person with a Nonin pulse oximeter, and this is the general data that we have. Connecting the device is very simple. In this case, you can see two of the devices that are connected, and it identifies the serial number, and then it connects to the device and starts transferring the data. Here we have a second pulse oximeter, the Masimo device, and you can see the information being provided on the patient. And the app is then similar to the other device we just connected. It simply connects, and here we go. You can see that it's matching up the data from the oximeter on the fingers. It matched up on the app, and this allows this information then to be stored, and a patient then will have the record of this information all in one spot, because now you've now got that the Fitbit information. You have, if they have an iWatch, that information. You'll have Samsung and Android and other abilities to connect on various devices. You can also have allergies and medications stored on here, so that you can track certain data of that nature on here. So it's a whole collection of a lot of various bits of what we would consider both biometric and environmental data on the application. And there's an advanced profile, which provides information on the patient, gender, and other age and material like that. So very excited about how this allows us to create a large amount of data on a patient that the patient then can provide to their caregiver. Additional data includes replacing the battery, it's running low on charge. These are the warnings or acknowledgement, time to replace the sieve cartridge. You can get things such as there's a power failure, all types of data that will be provided. In this case, another way, it's also telling you to perhaps do some maintenance on it, clean and reset date, for example, on an intake filter. And that is, you go in, this is the filter, gives you instructions on how to do it, and then you set the date for when you need to. There's also timing on the nasal cannula, so a wealth of information for a patient to help maintain the product and maintain data about their use of it, and hours used today and things like that, or hours used to date. All important information about maintaining both the patient and the product.